Hello, everybody, and hi, everybody. I want to say welcome to all of you today on our podcast here. We're going our weekly podcast. This is our second podcast that we are doing. So I want to say again, hi, everyone. Hope you have been well under the ongoing COVID-19 restrictions and precautions you have to take.
This is our
Naturally,
second.
our life has been challenged, and the way we are living our lives at this moment is something that as people who are living in a country where we've been impacted with this pandemic. Of course, there are certain things that we need to be cautious of, we need to be careful of, and at the same time keeping people safe around us, hopefully. So welcome to Me and You Education YouTube channel and Creating the Conversation podcast. Guys, today something I want to speak to you about. Something big happened this week, which me and my co-host, the man himself, Ivan Humble, will be chatting about. But before we get into sharing that with you guys, let me call on my friend and co-host, Ivan Humble, to say hi to all of you. And how has his week been? Ivan, what's going on, mate?
How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm chilling.
That's good. Hello, everyone. My week ain't been too bad. Started off slow. The good thing was we were able to start our mental health support group again. So we did that Thursday night. It was good to see. It was good for that connection again, to see each other instead of doing it online, which was Zoom, which was challenging through the COVID period. Do you know what I mean? But seeing each other face to face, it was great. I did a podcast last night with Beyond Barriers with Jeff Shoup.
Brilliant.
And I'm now an outreach worker for them, helping them challenge people. So the opportunities keep growing. Do you know what I mean? And the good thing about the Beyond Barriers thing is some of the team on there. There's all formers. Do you know what I mean? There's a former of the Church of the Creator on there. Remember that group?
Oh, yes.
The legend Darryl Davis, he's part of that team as well. So to be able to work with people like that, and it's amazing. Do you know what I mean?
It truly is. It truly is. It gives you an opportunity, doesn't it, to do that real work.
And it's good to hear the other side of the story from across the pond, really, because we always say about not looking down the same lens, which is true, but there are definitely similarities between what's going on here and over there. Do you know what I mean? So it's good just to have that. I don't know, it's just creating that network where if I have a challenging viewpoint again, I can then go to somebody direct and find out that bigger part of the picture that I'm probably not seeing in the newspapers or on social media. So it's positive like that. Do you know what I mean?
So it's been a fairly packed week for you, right? And it's been naturally an opportunity to share your thoughts, your reflections. And well, I'm gonna say this straight. I think it is essential that there is a genuine discussion, dialogue, conversation, more platforms which are talking about commonality, talking about real change, talking about those issues which are real, those issues which really impact, regardless if you've been convicted or not been convicted, or if you have a certain point of view or idea or a particular philosophy. We live in a free country to a certain extent. We can debate what that is and what it looks like in reality, but to have the opportunity to share your story, to share what you feel as a person, as an individual, I think is highly crucial. And I think, Ivan, because of your particular experience and engagement with people, and that I under all of the negativity that we see, to have a positive attitude is sometimes hard. And I think I want to bring this in. And I said this at the start, that we are going to talk about something which is, how shall I put it, something very, very crucial has happened this week. I was thinking with myself, and of course I spoke to Ivan as well about this, guys, that we want to discuss about something because we want a conversation, we want conversation about different aspects and elements, of course, from the extremities of society, talking about reality, what, of our existence, being, being a Muslim, being Christian, being non-faith or no God or whatever. All of these aspects are going to be discussed and conversed about, hopefully, upon this particular platform, podcast on creating the conversation. Now, of course, something major has occurred, and it's to do with what happened last year on the 15th of March, 2019. Now, on this day, a very horrific attack took place outside two mosques in New Zealand, in a place called Christchurch. Now, it took the lives of 51 men, women, and children. The individual who committed this particular crime, this heinous crime, horrific crime, this individual was convicted literally a few days ago. Brenton Tarrant, very difficult to even say his name, an individual whose name will always be synonymous with this particular horrific act. And of course, he was judged for admitting to 51 charges of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 charge of committing a terrorist act during the 2019 shooting rampage at 2 Christchurch mosques, which he live streamed on Facebook. I want to start off and kick off the conversation from here because there's some powerful footage that we have seen, Ivan. I know you've been checking it out online as well, and we want to share this because we want to dedicate today's show to those deceased individuals, 51 who died because of this horrific act, and those 40 counts of attempted murder, those people who were shot by him, some 9 bullets, some 10 bullets, right? And at the same time, I want to put this beside it because a few weeks before that, this particular conviction took place of the heinous act, one of the most horrific in England, in Britain, which is, of course, the bombing of the MEN within Manchester, the 22 innocent lives that were taken by another very horrific individual who had committed a crime, right, towards innocent individuals, right, in a place where people would go to have joy, have a laugh, do you understand, have a little bit of fun, but it went right the other way. Now, that's something I want to dedicate. Hopefully, myself and Ivan, we have talked about this. The next week's show, hopefully, will be dedicated, all right, to those 22 individuals for MEN. If the podcast had started earlier, we would have, of course, spoke about that first. But this is fresh. This is now. That's why we want to dedicate today's show to the fallen, those 51 in Christchurch, New Zealand. Ivan, take the floor. Tell me your thoughts, mate.
What can I say? Watching some of the videos has been an eye-opener as well. We don't often think of survivors too much. We normally think about the person who perpetrated the crimes.
That's right.
But being able to listen to some of their testaments in court, that they're actually speaking to the perpetrator himself, it was emotional.
Powerful.
It made me angry in places, but I was still grappling in my head with some of them when they say they can forgive him. That, I don't know, I haven't been in that position to understand that before. For me, I should imagine I'd find that really hard, but for others, it's obviously a way of coping. But just listening to that, what their loss and how they have to rebuild from there, as I say, it's heartbreaking. You can't imagine what's going through their shoes. Do you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
or what their everyday life is like. Do you know what I mean? It kind of opens you up to a side of things that we don't really see. We don't really hear the survivors' testaments like that. Do you know what I mean? We did a bit with the MEN as well. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is really good for the public to hear. It just, I don't know. It's just been heartbreaking, I guess.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think there's been some positive points to it as well. Just that Muslim brother with a football shirt on or the rugby top on.
Yeah. Wow. Ivan, let me just jump in. Let me just jump in and just say this at the same time, guys. Those who are listening at this moment in time, who are watching us at this moment in time, please, after we've had a discussion, conversation, you've engaged with us, you shared your thoughts and reflections as well, please leave your comments on there. We'll come back to later on around this particular very crucial and important sentencing of this individual. Ivan, I just touched on something which is very, very powerful. I'm going to go back to him in 1 second. Only thing I want to say is, after you've watched us, we want you to go back and look at the footage. We want you to watch those direct conversations of those who have been impacted by this horrific act. Go for it, Ivan.
Yeah, it's like the one that stands out in my head that I thought was most defiant and a big 2 fingers up to the perpetrator was the Muslim brother wearing the rugby shirt. When it was quite good when he went, "You've made me stronger," flexed his muscles, and then flicked in the middle finger. I thought, that's real. Do you know what I mean? That's real. That's real. That's how I'd kind of expect somebody to react a little bit. But it's like what he said. You may have took a part away from me, but you've made me stronger. It's like the Muslim convert as well. He said, "You've made me want to study Islam more," and stuff like that. It's just those parts of the real stories we don't hear. Do you know what I mean? That's what stands out to me. But I won't forget that brother in a long time. What his like 2 minutes testament he done was so powerful. Do you know what I mean?
No, what it is, see, you're touching on something which is really powerful. You're right. Them are real, raw sentiments. He said, well, look what his words were. He goes, "If my dad, a 71-year-old man that he murdered, if you had challenged him 1-to-1, he would have broken you to 2 pieces." Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? These are powerful sentiments. These are powerful words definitely. By this individual. These are his raw feelings. There's no doubt about that. And let's get this straight. We can't take away the pain, the loss of individuals who lose people, lose family members, loved ones, because of horrific and heinous acts of this kind. And I'm gonna come to this, bro. I'm gonna come to this, Ivan. Yeah, his reaction, nothing. And I tell you, when I was listening to the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the daughters, the sons, all right, repeatedly talking, and this is powerful. In my world, the world I tend to work in with certain individuals, right? There's something called restorative justice. Okay, and this is really, really powerful, because some of the key things that we forget in the system is that there's not only one way of dealing with a heinous and horrific act or crime of any kind. There's one way. It's called, we call it retributive justice. Based on punishment. You're done wrong. You're messed up. You got a sentence. You get locked up, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's one way. The second way is distributive justice, involving therapeutic treatment of offenders. So acknowledging that they've done a crime, they're going to do time, but there must be an underlying reason why someone has committed this heinous act, man. I come across people, individuals who have murdered people, who've murdered people. Now they've been diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's not natural to take someone's life. No. We've got our soldiers, we've got our from the Navy or the Air Force coming back to this country, all right, and they've got these mental health problems going on. They don't know how to function in society because some of the things that they've done themselves, these are trained individuals. These are soldiers. These are soldiers. Now, when I was watching the footage in court, of course, which is they let in cameras. Of course, there's very raw footage there. There are genuine conversations taking place, and they're face to face talking to him. All right, I can't even see us. Shocking. He said there is no emotion, and of course, yeah.
I don't think there was any emotion. I read loads of reports and watched videos. I remember at the start, just before this case took place, he sacked all his legal team because he wanted to represent himself.
Yeah.
So I guess that was a chance to platform his ideas. But during this, that changed. He then hired a lawyer just to give a little bit on his behalf. But there's no remorse from the man, do you know what I mean? Not one bit. His face didn't change. I can't even put myself in that position to think why he didn't show no emotion. Do you know what I mean? But then I'm not sticking up for him, but obviously there's something that happened in his life.
Yeah.
Or something like that. He was definitely radicalized. Do you know what I mean? There's no if, buts, maybes about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to then write a manifesto about his plans and print that online and to do it on live feed, you're not thinking straight away for them three things. Do you know what I mean?
No, it is, but at the same time, Alvin, look at this, because some in the world that we work, yourself, myself, Irfan, the founder, Irfan and Dave, of course, who are the founders of the organization Me and You Education. All right, and the areas that we work in, that's one of the things we look at is, and like I've just explained, that there has to be a distributive justice as well, because the problem is, as humans, and we're looking at nature of humanity, nature of a human being. Look, I come from a place of faith. For me, no human being is evil. No human being is born having hate, born a terrorist, born a murderer, born to do a certain type of heinous act. No doubt, we talk about destiny, which is a very complicated area of discussion. But the thing is, many aspects we create our own destiny. Now, it's the parts and sometimes the decisions we make, or we get coerced, we get radicalized, we get groomed to do some things which are like, oh my God, I can't believe it, you did that, bro. Do you know what I'm saying?
The other thing that was strange about him as well was he wrote names on it was guns and ammunition, didn't you remember?
He did, yeah. He did. Yeah.
And on one of them, I think he quoted, well, he did quote Rochdale, didn't he, about the agreement. That was on there as well, wasn't there?
He did, yeah, he did.
I mean, so he definitely had influences from other places as well. Do you know what I mean? You can't, because some of the other things written on his thing, if I remember rightly, were historic battles between Islamic battles with the Crusaders and stuff like that.
That's right.
He definitely wasn't in a good place. Do you know what I mean?
No, definitely not.
But what took him to that place, I don't think we'll ever know. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose the good thing to take away from it is he'll go down in history anyhow, not just for his attack, but for being the first person to get the maximum prison sentence in New Zealand.
In New Zealand, because they don't have a death penalty. They abolished the death penalty
and that's
decades ago.
He's been the only person that's had that kind of sentence. So he'll still go down in the history books as that anyhow. So he's never going to be forgotten. So we'll never find out.
But the thing is,
I don't think somebody like him is going to sit up and all of a sudden open up. Now he's doing 25 years or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It would just harden his views a bit more. He'll probably be isolated from everyone. So
see, my experience, Ivan, is slightly different to what you were saying, because working in certain setups. So I work with people who have done, criminal activity of this kind, or who have done particular type of, horrific acts. As humans, it's within our nature to have self-reflection. Now, some of us, because of our experiences in life, because of abuse, because of particular traumas, the way, especially men, we have a tendency to bottle up things. Now, I'm gonna be blunt with you. Look, Ivan, I have seen grown men, you know, outside when they walk around, it's like this one man is 10 men.
Yeah.
He's got the money, he's got the dollar, he's got the women, he's got the cars, he's got everything. You know what I mean? He walks on the street that he owns that street, bro. But guess what?
Inside.
When he's once the door is locked,
where you can't hide behind the mask.
Man. Yeah. Once the mask comes off, it's you, your conscience, your memories, your reflections, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your wants. Bang. Everything floods back. And that's, see, I've seen men crumble. Because men, as I'm talking about men, because my nature of my work is a lot with men who feel macho, manly. But the truth of the matter is, we are as mushy from inside as every other individual is. So when you say 25 years, hardened, and etc., in certain cases, those people who do not get distributive justice involving therapeutic treatment or offenders, and people who do intervention, people who have conversation, people who get to the bottom. Why the hell did you do what you did, man? Why did you do what you do? What's the reason behind that? Because look, let me share something with you, Ivan. See, this became a problem in the case of people who were committing horrific acts in the name of, for example, Islam as Muslims. Some of the newspapers were picking up, or news was saying, oh, this is how Islam is. Islam itself is an horrific religion. We're like, what? 1.8 billion human beings on earth, okay, and you made a statement like that. What you've just done, you have stereotyped everybody to be just like this individual. Now, this guy who's killed 51 innocent human beings, if tomorrow someone from another ethnicity stands up, he was white, he is European, or Australian in this case, all right, descendant of Europeans, and because of his heinous act, they turn around and they say, all Europeans, all Westerns are terrorists, and all they want is to murder and harm other ethnicities. How's it going to go down, bro?
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. The reporting is totally different. And that's probably looking back at my experience as well.
Exactly.
About the
give
media.
Us that. Give us that.
That media perception. They give me what I wanted to. They give me Adrian Chowdhury on a plate. It was him I researched. He was everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it does seem different. And it's like, it doesn't stop in New Zealand though, does it? Do you know what I mean? You have copycat attacks or people that are influenced by Brendan Tarrant. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy that would inspire somebody else to do something like that or try to do something like that. That mindset, I just can't get into at the minute. But linking that to the UK, apart from Rotherham being written on the gun, I remember there's a couple of arrests a couple of years ago, I think, or last year. A Luton man, a Polish man who's living in Luton.
Yep.
He was arrested on preparations of a terrorist act. I think he was going to plan to blow up or attack the gay parade, Luton Pride, and the LGBT people.
That's right.
He'd got all the bomb components ready. He even had a copy of that Christchurch manifesto. Previous to that, he was putting up posts praising him. So that's kind of just one. And then another one, believe it or not, was the white guy, Vincent Fuller. The white guy who did the stabbing at Stanwell Tesco's in the car park.
Yes.
And he was reportedly saying, chatting white supremacy. He's going to kill all Muslims. And just like the one before, he'd previously posted Facebook posts supporting Brendan Tarrant and stuff like that as well. And the reason that is because of the internet.
Yeah.
It inspires, and this is a problem with the far right when they attack, they do it individually and not as a group. Because it's the far right is in lots of little groups, and there's lots of angry little people as well. Do you know what I mean? And the online space just makes it worse.
Yeah, I'd say it's the anonymous, being anonymous. You know, this is why when the family members were talking directly, all right, to the murderer of these 51 individuals, all right, they said to him, "You're a coward.
Yeah.
You're a coward. You killed people who were innocent, who had no armor, no guns, no nothing, right? You came out and you done that." And that's sadly, it's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's like, sadly, the same thing's happening online. People under, be anonymity. We come out with some of the most horrific crap that you can imagine, and we think, you know what? Because I'm behind, you know what I mean? We have keyboard warriors, right? And the impact of them statements, those messages, those words, is bloody profound.
Yeah, and it's the internet's crazy. Like, let's not forget. Let's take it back to our workshops, for example. Some of them we do. We talk about the games, neo-Nazis and various extremist group hijacking games.
Yeah,
it was reported that Brendan Tarrant, a profile that said Brendan Tarrant, they couldn't prove it was him exactly, but he was online previous about 26 hours before that attack, playing an online shooter up called ISIS Defense.
What the?
Do you know what I mean? So, and you think that's bad. When he actually did his attack and live streamed it, there's somebody in New Zealand got 2 years in prison for not just taking the video and retweeting and sharing it. He added a body counter to it.
Wow.
As well.
Yeah.
And because of that, he got 2 years in prison for that. And not just that, that influence online is scary, because remember those other slides I showed you about that game called Intruders, I think it was.
Yeah.
A game that was made online for people to play, where you are actually Brendan Tarrant going in.
You know,
you've got the guns and you've seen the screenshots to the game.
And let me share with you, you know, when you showed us that, I was like, what?
Mm. Like,
they've made a game out of his horrific act.
Yeah, where you actually get to play him. There's a body counter. It's unbelievable. Do you know what I mean?
Unbelievable. It's like life has no value.
I must admit, I think before I got into this world, I'd probably laugh at you if you said they were hijacking games and that. Do you know what I mean? I'd have probably laughed at that. But doing this work, seeing it for myself with my own eyes, and it's just unbelievable that the extremists, not just the far right, let's just not focus on them, but any extremists would exploit any platform to get their message out there. Do you know what I mean?
No, even with Islamists, for example, on Twitter, a tweeting game, only in the last few years, all right, because of the continuous, bombardment of requests from mainstream society to Twitter saying to them, hey, what are you doing? Do you understand? There's all this stuff going on your platform. What are you doing about it? And on the basis of that, thank God, certain things got, curtailed and, resolved or sorted. But that doesn't mean that these organizations, what they do is they create another echo chamber, and they start screaming in that one as well. Do you know? Yeah,
and that's the thing. Do you know what I mean? There's deplatforming people doesn't always work. The positive thing about deplatforming somebody is, I think, is what I think anyhow, is it takes their message away from the masses. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't stop the hate. The hate's still there. It just comes in another character, the next person. Do you know what I mean? While the other ones go to a darker chamber where they become more radicalized.
No, Ivan, see, there's something what you just touched on there, and I remember, I know initially when I got to know you a few years ago, mate, and you told me something very interesting. You said my journey, right, into this world, into this, extremist or unsatisfactory state of what was happening in the country, right, did not start with an ideology. It
Yeah,
was
not at all.
genuine. It was genuine grievance, genuine concern, right, of society, of community. And I went. Go on, you tell us. You went and knocked on the right door, but you got the wrong answer.
Yeah, and that was it. Do you know what I mean? When you're not listened to, especially online, you become a bit more franchised with what you. Because my genuine concern was honestly a genuine concern. It was about the Troops Homecoming Parade. Do you know what I mean, in Luton.
Yeah.
But because nobody would listen to me or offer me, or even offer me anything like to with my frustrations, like just for example, like when I spoke to that counsellor, here, I mean, here's a couple of emails. Do send an email. I'm not saying it would have changed me, but a lot of my frustration and anger would have probably went into that email, and I would have been think, oh, I've had my say.
Yeah.
But instead of them doing that, I ranted online and found a solution, which at the time was a valid solution for me. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. You got to vent your concerns.
Yeah.
You got someone who came and said, "Yeah, I want to listen to you." Right?
It's like I
sounds. Yeah, go for it.
It is what sort of say. Do you know what I mean? About, I've always said it. Extremists will exploit that gap in the conversation, and that gap in my conversation was nobody wanted to hear what I had to say about a Muslim guy. Maybe I weren't really. I don't even think I slagged him off to a point. Do you know what I mean? It's just anger around him, and I guess I got a bit off track there, but you get what I'm saying, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
No, I do. So when you don't get the opportunity in the right way to share your concerns and your grievances and your pain and your genuine issues, naturally the online world gives you an open arena, right, to say what you want, how you want to say it. But then you don't know who's listening. You don't know who's gonna ping you, who's gonna poke you and say, "Hey, I get you." And it starts from "I get you, I understand" to "Oh my God, I've been in them for about 5 years now."
Yeah, it did kind of go that quick as well. But if you want to bring it up to present context as well, the same thing that happened to me around a genuine concern. In 2020 now, there's a lot of genuine concerns about immigration.
Yeah,
and we've spoken about this before, Imran, and there are some genuine concerns. And because we're not talking about them genuine concerns in the public, the extremists have been able to seize ownership of that kind of argument. With Farage going around all the hotels and then boats coming across, I get that genuine concern that not every boat will get stopped. Some will get through and some will disappear. There's a YouTube video where one person film actually stopped 7 people disappearing into the bushes. Do you know what I mean? So there is that genuine concern that people are coming here and just sneaking off into wilderness. But we're not talking about that bit. Do you know what I mean? But looking today, look what Britain First have done again. They've done what they do best. Shock tactics. They've gone into some hotels today in Warrington, I think, that are housing asylum seekers. Somehow they've got actually into the hotel and they've gone around. We've stayed in hotels, right? They've gone down knocking on all the doors in all the corridors and see who answers. But they did mess up because obviously their research went as good as they thought. They did mess up and went into a hotel full of homeless people. So it was them portraying them homeless people as migrants for their agenda. It's that gap in that conversation again. Britain First have been able to come out, and I'm not saying they could get a rush of members or anything like that, but there'll be a lot of people that are listening to them now because they're going to be seen as we're speaking about it, the government dare or they dare and we will. And that's when you start getting that slip of people who are sitting on the fence start tipping over.
That's the problem. Yeah.
So, I mean, that is like a hook. You start slipping and then you start engaging in conversations, and the next thing you know, you're probably on that side. Do you know what I mean?
And sometimes that's what it takes.
Because of a genuine concern. And And that's it. We don't talk about real issues, or when we do talk about issues, we talk about the negatives. We see the negatives. We don't look at what positive steps could be changed to make this better, or what we can learn from the mistakes. We don't seem to learn from our mistakes.
We don't. And let me share this with you at the same time. Like, for example, recently we've been talking about what's happening in Palestine, for example, all right, at the hands of the Israeli Authority. Okay. Now, if someone starts talking about that, this is genuine grievance, genuine concern. You see footage online, you see what the hell's going on, right? And then you express your concern, and then suddenly you label as, "Wait a minute, are you an extremist? Are you an Islamist? Are you this? Are you that?" You're like, "Hey, 1 minute. These are real concerns." So then, like in the same light, what happens is then you have certain extreme groups that will latch on to something like that and say, "1 minute, we are screaming and shouting about this, so you got to be on our side." Like, same. What we're trying to say is that the commonalities within the extremities of our society are shocking.
It is, and that's on all sides of the fence. Do you know what I mean? They'll use a gap in the argument. It doesn't mean just the far right or Islamists. Some of the people on the left at the minute, elements of the left where it's turning into like that cancer culture or that pick a side culture. The public outcry for some things is that we're being influenced by public outcry now, where it should never be like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like nobody's prepared to sit down and talk to each other anymore. It's just quick label, and you're forgotten about it. You're in your tick box, and this tick box thing and labeling, Imran. The extreme far right want that, people in their own little groups.
Yeah, they do.
The way that the far left, or some of the far left, are pushing that narrative of race and everything, we're all being sectioned into they're doing each other's work for each other. They're feeding each other.
Yeah, feeding the hate. That's what we're doing.
Because both sides have genuine concerns, but they're not prepared to listen to each other. So they're arguing about who's right and wrong. There's no middle ground on that argument.
No common ground, the way you usually say.
Yeah,
no real common ground.
No, it's the problem. When you're arguing over middle ground, you're not getting nothing. It's an argument, who's right and wrong. It does gain nothing apart from further division, further anger. We need to, I keep saying about breaking the circle. We've been in the circle for years. Do you know what I mean?
We have.
Why haven't we broken out of it yet? Why are we still accepting this kind of behaviour still? And
no, but at the same time, I agree. But the thing is, Ivan, look, to start off a conversation, one side has to acknowledge where they're going wrong.
Yeah.
There has to be acknowledgement of wrong. That not everything, but 4%, 10%, 12%, that is a problem. Right? Now, for example, I remember when in the case, of course, we're talking about the horrific acts of what took place in Christchurch in New Zealand. But this is related to the whole how the process begins with people when they start to engage with very extreme groups. Okay, I remember when how the EDL started, for example. One of the main concerns what they had to put forward was grooming gangs, right? Which is real. And they said these are Muslim, these are Asian, which is true, right? Yeah. Now, by not acknowledging that this was true, not saying every single individual that was there was a Muslim, or every single person there was Asian, right? There might have been a mixture of whatever they were. But at that particular time, that was something as a community we should acknowledge. Because that's the fact. That's a fact. Now, problem is, let me just throw this in. Problem is that by acknowledging that, from your side, yeah, that's true. So we also have individuals who may groom or who may radicalize, who may take advantage of vulnerable people. But now it's an opportunity to open the conversation. So a person says that, I will open the conversation. I go, okay. But at the same time, don't be selective. Yeah, mate, you got to acknowledge the online grooming, predominant 99% is done by white, middle-aged men trying to get access to kids, boys and girls.
Yeah.
What happened with the showbiz people? Right? All of these, high profile individuals who were getting up to mischief, in the 60s and the 70s, all right, with kiddies and taking advantage of them. Who were they? Predominantly British or white middle-aged men. Okay, not saying others don't, they do. What about the football scandal? What about the gymnast scandal?
Yeah,
right?
the current one. And
The current one,
Bally
yeah.
one. You've got Bally one now, haven't you?
But yeah, ballet as well. Now, what I'm trying to say is, to start off the conversation, one side has to acknowledge the truth, or acknowledge that there is truth in what you are saying. But then that should open up into a larger conversation. That it's not only our problem because we're ethnic group, or with this, with that. This is a larger societal problem, and we all need to sit together around the table to deal with this.
And go back to my experience again. It was, if I'm honest, part of the reason that drove me in further deeper was the denial from the Muslim community about things.
Yeah.
How I couldn't believe that they could just blatantly deny things. Like, say, for back then, the difference was Al Qaeda, it wasn't ISIS. Do you know what I mean? So when there was an attack, then it was, oh, they're not Muslim. They're quoting your book. Even Lee Rigby's killers, they're not Muslim. Hang on, he was quoting the scriptures. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So how can you say that he wasn't Muslim? But then I think when I met Manwar Ali, he was a person that restored my faith in that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because
do you want to tell us? Do you want to just share with our viewers who Manwar Ali is?
Yeah, so Manwar Ali was a Muslim I met on my journey. He was good for me because he was a former mujahidist, as you would call him, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So he understood my background. So when we got a chatting, he was able to see me as a human being, although I couldn't see him as anything as I dehumanized. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I dehumanized the whole UK Muslim community. Then I've got this man sitting in front of me, brown skin, big beard, talking to me like I'm a human.
And the amazing thing is, you were still up to what you were up to.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was still EDL because I didn't believe him to start with. Do you know what I mean? I thought, Takibia, is that the word that the Muslims are allowed to use when they're allowed to lie about things? I was quoting that to him a lot to start with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the one. I was quoting that a lot, but then he just let me have my say. And honestly, it was just like, I just ran on for about an hour and I pushed buttons. I was controversial. I said things that I was hoping was going to wind him up. And at the end of it,
you're not like that. That's not true about you.
I know. And at the end of it,
he just went,
do you know what I mean? At the end of it, he just sort of sniggered and went, "You're finished."
Yeah.
And for me, that made me chuckle. And then he said, "Right." His next thing he said was the thing that made a bit of a difference. He went, "Right, I've listened to you. I understand what you've said. You have got some genuine concerns amongst that, but you also have some, or maybe quite a few, misconceptions."
Yeah.
So I went to him, explain them to me. Do you know what I mean? Show me where, or not where I was going wrong, but show me the bigger picture. What wasn't I seeing that he was?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of that progression. Then over 2 years, I changed. Do you know what I mean? There's other issues as well, what changed me, but it was him being able to sit me down, see me as a human being. I tried having dialogue with many different people over my journey, from people on the left, from Stand Up to Racism back then, from Unite Union, anybody who spoke out against us. I'd want to talk to them and just get them to hear my side. Do you know what I mean? Let them. I don't care if they still hate me after they heard it, but at least give me the 5 minutes to let me tell you
Exactly.
why I'm saying this and why I'm thinking that, because we're too quick to look at the hate and the violence.
Yeah.
We're not bothered, or we don't seem to care what's got people to that point. We're just worried, oh, they've been violent, they've said something bad, let's do it. Now it's below that, do you know what I mean? And I think just giving people 5 minutes of your time to listen to their point, it gives you, you don't have to agree with it still, it just gives you that better understanding of what the person is like that.
I think
Like we always said, race, you're not born racist. Racism and hate is learned. Do you know what I mean?
There's a
See,
learned
it
behavior.
is possible to unlearn it, but it's not a 5 minute fix. It took me, if I'm honest, 2.5 years of talking to the Muslim community before I was able to really say, right, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Because my genuine concerns are still there, some of them, do you know what I mean? But they are being talked about a lot more now, so my anger, my frustration is not there for that subject anymore.
Yeah, you're finding that there are people who genuinely are ready to listen to you and say, you know what, 1 minute, he's right. These are problems and they need to be dealt with. Right? Regardless, we might not see it, we might not believe it, but from his perspective, he is right. Now, I want to have a conversation. I know you want a conversation, a bit of a discussion around why people hate, where hate comes from. But I want to go back to, of course, Christchurch and the horrific acts of the Christchurch, the 51 individuals that were murdered by this individual, this person, okay, who committed this crime without any feeling of any kind. The way he came out, the way he had his guns, the way he walked out with his whole regalia on, like he was part of the army or something, right? With his camera, talking into the camera and etc., without a single ounce of feeling who he's going to kill, who he's going to murder, who he's going to take life of. Came to two different mosques, went to 2 different mosques, right? These were worshippers, these were people who had gone there to engage in prayer. They had gone, and elderly people, women,
and
children,
to be fair,
kids.
there was a part that I didn't know until this come out the other day, was not only did he kill the people, he had gas canisters or petrol canisters in his car.
Yeah.
His plan was to set fire to the mosque as well.
He did, yeah.
But I guess luckily he forgot to do that. You think what it would have been a lot worse. That was his overall plan, was to attack 2 mosques and set light to them. And what do you say on that? Do you know what I mean? If
but then, Ivan, there's another one, isn't it? You know, we live in a world where people say, "Oh, what are you talking about? These are in a marginalized people. They don't really impact people. They don't really have that voice, etc., in society and community." For God's sake, this is real. On the 15th of March 2019, this guy made a full bloody plan. You know, he reflected, he thought about it, he took the steps carefully. You know, the High Court judge, Cameron Mander, said in Christchurch on this particular Thursday, he goes, that a finite term would not be sufficient for a person like him. Because how much detail he put into his thought, reflection, and how he prepared for this. He came to annihilate. He came to completely eradicate these people. He didn't care if they were old, didn't care if they were women, didn't care if they were children, didn't care if they had family. He didn't give a toss about it, mate.
It's like you talk about how much planning went into it. There's that thing where he even got a drone to go over the mosque 2 months before the attack to get the layout and everything.
He did.
So that mindset he must have had that mindset for quite a long while throughout all that planning, and his conscience didn't kick in one, or his moral compass didn't work. Do you know what I mean? Even when you're sitting there planning what you're going to do, there must be that little thought in your back of the head saying, "This is wrong. This is wrong." Why? I just can't see how people can silence that little voice and do what he did. It's a bit like Dylan Roof. when he had that conversation.
Yeah.
And then he
With
said, and then he shot the 9 black people in the church. And after he was arrested, he said, if that conversation may have been a bit longer, I might not have done it.
Yeah.
But he done it anyhow. That kind of thinking, I can't put myself in that shoes. Do you know what I mean? It's, how does somebody get to that point where
when you delve into this area of discussion around how does the psychology or the psychological state of these individuals or the mind work of these individuals, they become so engrossed within the ideology that they run according to that fuels whatever they are doing. So even if, so for example, if it's like this, isn't it? You're going to go into battle, right? You know you're going to kill people. Okay, you're going to get in there. What do? You psych yourself up. Now, suddenly you see a kid, you see a woman, right? And this is a whole argument around how warfare works and the ethics of war and etc. And there has to be some sort of judgment around this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we have Geneva Conventions, and that's why we have laws around how even battle takes place, because it's the how psyched we become completely blinkered when we go into a situation. Even though you have people there that are nice to you, good to you, loving towards you, like you said with Dylan Roof, they sat down with him, they gave him a cup of tea, they spoke to the young man. And what did he do? Took up a gun, bang, 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 bang. 9 innocent, individuals within a black Christian church, slaughtered, murdered, killed.
It's not, what we've got to remember, it's not just the victims and the survivors. It's their families, their children, their grandchildren. God. It's like we talk about
heavy, man. It's heavy, bro. It's heavy.
It's not even a ripple effect. It's like a tsunami. This is. Do you know what I mean? When we forget about the immediate family, we only think about the people that's affected, but their brothers, sisters, aunties, and uncles. Everyone is impacted by an attack or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just the people who died and had. They were hurt. There's all these other people with extra trauma. Do you know what I mean? It's a community. It's not even a family trauma. It's a community trauma. That community has suffered a big trauma. Do you know what I mean? How do they rebuild from that? Do you know what I mean? They're obviously doing a good job, but it'd be good to find out how they actually progress on that journey. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with you. But the thing is this, that in the case of what's happening in Christchurch, one of the statements was from a mum. And she said, she goes, "You gave me a life sentence by taking my son away from me. She goes, I can't forgive you for what you've done." And just before you said, the shocking was there were people there that said, "I pity you, but I forgive you." And you said that's shocking. And you're right. That doesn't seem normal for people. But no. Let me just share something with you, Ivan. In mainstream, there's a therapy called forgiveness therapy. Right? It exists. This is a real thing. It's called forgiveness therapy. It's like restorative justice, which is very, very similar. Now, restorative justice is like based on resituation with input, right, from victims and offenders. So they revisit a situation where the victim gets an opportunity to speak to the offender directly. So in a way, of course, it was done here as well regarding, the conviction of the brother of the murderer, the bomber of Manchester, the 22 that have been fallen. Abidi. Muhammad Abidi. Now, this individual, I'm sorry, I have a tendency to be very careful with names. I don't like saying names of these individuals. I have a problem with that. Do you know what I mean? I want to say the names of the those who've lost their lives. Do you know what I'm saying? It's hard. My brother is hard. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's really hard. May the Lord have mercy. You know what I'm saying? But hear me out. So here, if the family still got the opportunity to speak to the offender, I came across something a while ago, and this is something that was done in South Africa. We talk about how do these people move on. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela, when he becomes, of course, president. He takes that role and position. A black man takes over a country which was under apartheid for so many decades. People thought the world would change and the country will move on, but it didn't. It was stalled because the pain was still within the heart of the people who had lost their family members, who had lost their land, who had lost their money, who had been belittled for having a different skin color. So what he done is something called South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's based upon the values and idea of restorative justice. Okay, so to show how restorative justice can be used to address system-wide offenses and affect broad swathes of a group or a society. So what he done was he put the victim in front of the offender or the family members of the offenders, and for the victims to hear that the offender is, or the family members of the offender are stating, "We are sorry." And just by saying we apologize, oh my God, it did more for the the mental health and the moving forward of these people from the stagnated position than any compensation, any money, any wealth, because the people who hurt them said, "We are genuinely sorry." And let me share, Ivan, under forgiveness therapy, one of the key things they look at is how traumatic it is. The person who doesn't forgive. This is why within certain religions and faiths and philosophies, forgiveness is given preference. Why? It says in reality, forgiving is not personal. Forgiving is not a selfish act. Forgiveness, no doubt, also helps you, but it also helps the person that has committed that wrong. It gives them opportunity to go, "What? I can't believe it. I took someone so loving and beloved to this person. And what is it? I forgive you because I pity you." And what happens internally when you don't forgive, mate? What happens? There is continuous trauma that's happening internally because you got this anger, you got this frustration, you've got this sense of, how dare he do this to me? How dare she do this to me? Every day you are self-harming. This is why it is shocking. I don't disagree with it. It is shocking. But the power of restorative justice, the power of forgiving someone. I'm not saying forget. Don't forget. You learn from that situation. That's what I'm saying. And I'm telling you, mate, I've had the same opportunity that you had with certain, I know you deal with a lot of survivors, all right, of all types of, difficulties and background and etc. And what I've seen is, when they say, "I lost someone that's loving towards me, was beloved to me, but I pity the person who's done this because they have to live with it forever." That's real. And I think as human beings, my mate Ivan, this is important. We have to acknowledge this, that this is real and this is human.
Yeah, I get that now. But it's just been, I know, it just, think about what you just said, actually. It's sort of, I remember my mate Dandell, the most injured, the one from 77. Now, I had many conversations with him about what he went through and everything. And I always said to him, right, that, "Do you hate all Muslims?" Because I think,
wow.
And I kind of said to him, because I perceived I hate all Muslims, right? But these Muslims blew you up, bruv. Do you know what I mean? So you've probably got a genuine reason to hate Muslims in general, right? When I was stereotyping, do you know what I mean? He went, "No, not at all." And I was a bit shocked by that. Do you know what I mean? I said, "Explain to me, Dan." And he went, "Look, without a doubt, hand on my heart, I hate with everything I got the 4 people that did the attack that day. And I can't see me ever stopping that hate. But for hating the Muslim community, how can I?"
Wow.
He said, and the powerful bit is not just that, but he said, "How can I?" And he went, a Muslim doctor saved my life. He died on the table 4 times.
Wow.
The doctor wouldn't give up on him. And he kept massaging his heart and brought him back to life.
Wow.
He was a Muslim doctor. As you can imagine, with Dan's horrific injuries, he had trouble sleeping. Every time he'd shut his eyes, he'd wake up, he'd be screaming. But for 72 hours, a Muslim nurse sat next to him.
Wow.
Every time he woke up, she was there holding his hand. He said, how can I hate the community when they've done that for me? The 4 Muslims that did that, I will hate forever. But I cannot hate the whole Muslim community. Which so I do kind of get that idea of forgiveness, how some people can now, I think. Because I've forgotten about Dan's story, but yeah, I do get it. But that trauma for Dan is going to sit with him for life.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
And,
that's powerful. Do you know what I'm saying? Ivan, that is powerful, man.
And that's why I like, because we done a talk together, and like me hating Muslims and him coming on next. I asked him that question about, did you hate the Muslim community? When he told me, it made sense. And one thing about my past that I learned from Dan as well is I learned quite an important lesson from him. Because we worked together on a project to make for a play. When I heard his story, I got the uncut version. Do you know what I mean? So it made me feel guilty. Not because of the attacker, because it's not like I could have done for that. But in my past life, I used to use the 7/7 attack for my agenda against the Islamist Muslims or against the Muslim community.
Right.
It wasn't until I spoke to Dan, listened to his story, that I thought how selfish I was. I didn't give any consideration to somebody like Dan because I was too busy pushing my agenda against Muslims.
Right.
So I apologise to him for that, because he taught me a lesson that day that on numerous times when there's attack, we see people using the attack for an agenda. Are they really thinking about the survivors and the victims of the attack? Looking at my past and how guilty I was, I don't think so. And that's why I've done a lot. I've made a point of meeting survivors and victims, and I've got a lot of friends now who can tell me lots of different stories that keep my feet on the ground, and that's that message I push out about the survivors. That the attack will always be remembered, but it's the survivors we forget about, the victims. Do you know what I mean? We don't do enough to maybe remember them properly. Do you know what I mean?
I got invited. Let me share something. I got invited to through me and you education as well. I went to the European Union, and at the time they were looking at passing a bill to help those victims of terror. So what the intention was to help them financially, to give them some support and help, or as a community, as societies of different countries. They wanted to create financial fund, or they wanted to create funding to support the survivors or support the victims of terrorist and very extreme acts like the one that took place in Christchurch in New Zealand. Now, I went there and I'm going to be blunt. You know, I had to be straightforward about this. I said, I want to see what's in my heart, and hopefully, you know, as we progress within this particular Creating the Conversation podcast for me and you, education YouTube channel. Hopefully, I like yourself, Ivan. Hopefully, I can also share that sometime as a footage for people to see. Now, what I done was I spoke about the holistic sense of those people who are the victims of terror, victims of crimes of this kind. That it's not only those who've been directly murdered or hurt, but it's a larger community.
Yeah, definitely.
It was always said whenever crime, for example, whenever an Islamist went and bombed and killed innocent, Europeans or non-Muslims, they don't really care. They don't care if they're Muslim or non-Muslim. Everything's collateral for them. They don't give a damn. In fact, majority of the crimes that they tend to partake in and murders that they do, sadly, the Muslims.
Yeah.
They seem as the other. But what I'm saying is, the victims and those survivors, there's a larger cohort of people.
Yeah,
Now,
definitely.
our communities. Now, this is hard because I work in communities which see themselves as different to me. But weird thing is, just because your skin color is different or your religion is different, your experience, my experience is damn the same. You'll be
Yeah.
shocked. Have a conversation with me, mate. You'll realize. I remember Ivan, you and Ivan, we were in a chat. I know you were in a conversation with Irfan. You were in conversation with Irfan. And Irfan's like, I'm working class. You're working class. You're from difficult times. I'm from difficult times. What the hell are we doing? Now, what you find is the victim and the survivors are, like you said, we forget them. The only reason we forget them is we only remember that instant, that moment.
Yeah.
And I think by listening to the families in Christchurch, it should either re-emphasize and revitalize the idea or revive the idea of engaging with those that have been impacted by this.
It also shows compassion and empathy as well. Do you know what I mean?
It does, mate.
It shows they're important qualities for change. They are as well. But if they can do it in such an extreme situation, why can't most people do it in simple situations? Show a bit of compassion, be a bit kinder.
But that's something else.
Small things like that make a bigger step later on. Do you know what I mean?
They do, mate. And one more thing. Look, we talk about hate, don't we? It's because of hate that this person went out, prepared everything, organized everything. All right, went a few weeks before. All right, used a drone, looked at the mosques. All right, he didn't care who they were. He targeted them. He got his guns, etc., etc., etc. That's what he done, right? But that was hate. Now, you said something. You said something very important. You go, once I started to converse with people, once I started to have that dialogue, I go, 1 minute. But I want to ask a question, Ivan. Why do people hate? Why do you think?
You were lucky I wasn't going to go into that Jane Elliott rant, that video. I can't remember. But Jane Elliott.
Black Lives Matter, bro.
Do you know what I mean? Jane Elliott's a good person as well. When she said, it's ignorance. Do you know what I mean? We are taught to hate. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes we're not prepared to unlearn it. Hate's a difficult thing to describe as well. Do you know what I mean? It's probably one of the most overused words in the last 10 years. The reason I say that is something stupid, right? Because my daughter, she's 14 now, but I remember her growing up 14 years ago. I hate this food, I hate this food. And as she got older, she's still saying it. I thought, what happened to the word dislike? It's like that word has disappeared because hate is used more than dislike. And dislike is probably a better word for some things than hate. Do you know what I mean?
It's less venomous.
Yeah, it's the language has changed as well, I think. There's so many different. I could chat all night about this. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so many little things that you could just tweak and turn, and it could set something different. Do you know what I mean?
But in my experience, Ivan, you know what I realized, just like yourself, look, I get an opportunity to work with who get convicted to particular crimes, very, very extreme crimes, and when you ask them, oh, there was a sense of hate, or he or she was the other, and whatever it was. Problem is once the amazing thing is once they start getting knowledge about them people, once they become aware of what they really are, the people that they assumedly hate. In other words, ignorance creates hate, right? And hate comes from a state of fear. Fear of the other. Now, once you remove ignorance, you create dialogue and conversation. People go, hey, was I hating this? What the hell's going on?
There is that wake up moment you get, trust me. And that's the thing, that dialogue is so important. It's the simplest thing that we can do as humans is to talk to each other. But we're still not prepared to do that sometimes. And the most basic human need is to be understood and heard. So if you're not going to be understood and heard, what are you going to do? You're going to rebel, not on purpose because you're pushed a certain way or something. Do you know what I mean? You make the wrong choices.
But wouldn't you say sometimes it takes the way someone says it? Look, for example, if I'm coming across aggressive, loud, aggressive, I've got a point. I'm making a genuine point, a genuine concern. I have a grievance, but the way I'm presenting it, I'm being aggressive. I'm being in your face. All right. You might. Sorry about that. You might. You'll understand where I'm coming from, but you're gonna have difficulty engaging with me. Don't we have to look at the way we present ourselves as well? Ivan, what do you think?
Yes and no. I agree with what you said, but I think sometimes if that person's in your face shouting everything, I look at everything. So for me, being in that situation, it would be that person has tried so hard to have his voice heard. Yeah. He's now got to that point of frustration now before it gets to anger. Yeah. He has to say it. He has to say what he's got to say straight away, so you listen to him. He's trying to make you listen. Right. If you see what I mean, that's what I think it is. And the difficult conversations we keep talking about are quite easy to have. It's the listening. That's the listening. There. That listening is the most important. And I think not everybody can do it, or not everybody can do it neutrally. That's the important thing, being neutral in conversations. And that is, I think, a special skill set. Or maybe not special, maybe because I've been on both sides of the fence, I understand the grievances more than most people, maybe. Agreed. But I just think that remaining neutral is key to the listening part of it. Do you know what I mean? Because if you've already got a bit of a viewpoint on the person you're talking about, if say it's a neo-Nazi, you think, I hate Nazis, you're not listening properly because you're not interested in what he's got to say. Yeah. To have that difficult conversation, you've got to be actually interested that you want to hear. You want to show that. Do you know what I mean? So in other words, you've already made your mind up about someone just by their regalia, their color of the skin, their apparent, symbols of religion, and because you have a probably very stereotypical idea about what they are, you're not ready to listen to what they are really saying and what they're trying to mention, what they're trying to share with you. No, you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. You're listening to reply, not to understand. Yeah. Wow. You know what I mean? And that's probably the most important thing we can leave this on, about listening. And dialogue's easy. We can talk about dialogue all day. It's easy to have a conversation. Do you know what I mean? It's the listening that's there. And listening's not only, we have this thing about listening with ears. Yeah, right. That is the physical for that, but it is body, mind, and soul. It's genuinely getting to the bottom of what that person is saying, why they're saying it, where they're coming from. Even like you said, even the way they may sometimes present themselves, that tells you more about their genuine frustration and why they're coming to it. That's powerful. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think talking about Christchurch, talking about the 51 individual that fell on the 15th of March 2019 because of this heinous, horrific act by this individual who's been genuinely convicted for life behind bars, all right, and rightly so. And I think by listening to the conversations, or at least the presentations of the family members, which is heart-wrenching, Ivan, heart-wrenching. It's that powerful. Was heart-wrenching to the point where that's still in my mind, fresh in my mind, these videos are. Yeah. I watch a lot of videos, but they're right at the front of my mind, they are still, do you know what I mean? Because maybe one of the two of the lines they've said in a different context has resonated with me. My loss of my dad, do you know what I mean? I understand that sense of loss they've got. My dad was taken from away with cancer. I couldn't do nothing about that. So that sense of loss, I kind of understand. I think it's triggered something inside me, actually, making me think about things now. Do you know what I mean? Which is good because life's all about learning. It is, and we're human, mate. Do you know what I'm saying? I think we are human. That's important. Like you just said, you have sympathized with their loss,
by putting your own loss in front of you and said, you know what, I can understand the sentiment, I can understand the feeling of that loss.
It's that common ground again. I've got something in common with them, and commonalities gives you a connection.
It does.
I'm not saying I don't know them; they're strangers to me, but I can understand what they're not exactly what they're going through because it's different circumstances. But to me, I feel my dad was ripped away from me because of cancer.
Yeah.
I couldn't do nothing. It was out of my control. There's nothing I could do to save him, which is a bit like what they went through. Not on the same scale, obviously different, but that's how I can connect with them. Do you know what I mean? That was a big deep, that was, but you see what I'm talking about, you know what I mean?
I'm with you, Ivan, you know what I'm saying? And God bless you for that, you know, just sharing that with us as well. And we're coming to near the end of our podcast today on creating the conversation. But I think there's a number of areas we discussed and conversed, and today was dedicated to the 51 individuals, all right, that fell on the 15th of March 2019. And thank God the committer of the crime itself has been convicted for life, and rightly so. Guys, I think that's a massive, you know, aspect that we need to discuss and talk about today. Hopefully what we've discussed and talked about, you will give us your views and ideas and your own, you know, feedback as well, please. That'd be really good. But at the same time, I want to say, because we talk about hate, the right opposite of hate is love. And this is what's powerful. I think where there is hate, the way to remove it is to bring in love. And I think that's something we need to reflect about. That's something we need to talk about. And like Ivan has said, it is the common ground. And that common ground is based upon, basically, we are all humans. So guys, we're saying thank you very much. Hopefully, we've given you something. I'm going to leave the last few words to my mate, my co-host, Ivan Humble, and then we'll sign out. Go for Ivan.
Actually, I was just trying to find something. I tweeted something yesterday. It was a quote from a film I watched. It was recommended to me by Dave, a film called Burden.
Yeah.
It's about a clan member who has conversations with a black pastor. I think that's what they call that. They're not big, a black pastor. Really good film, and it's quite sincere, and it gives you hope. Do you know what I mean? It really does give you hope. And there's a quote in it, and I must tweet too much because I can't find it. It's something like, it's got to be a scene. Oh, I can't remember what it is now, but it's something like, if you want to tackle hate, you have to replace hate with something.
Yeah.
So why not replace hate with love? Yeah. Something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's quite a good little saying, but and that's like a lot of the films I watch like that, where the true stories about former people meeting the other person. That dialogue is so important. It just proves that it works. We should be doing it more openly, more honestly.
Hopefully.
So just keep up the honest conversations, I guess.
Let's do it, mate. And God bless you. Hopefully our viewers and our listeners will join us next week. We're signing out. God bless, guys, and goodbye. Thank you.
See you later.